And hopefully this will be smooth. We'll see. Find out soon. The first piece of business on here is to run through the roll call. The secretary invited you to select. So, Madam Secretary.
Kate Prather. Kevin Hutchinson.
Here.
Michelle Whittington. I saw her.
She's here somewhere.
She's here.
But
I was in the elevator with her. I thought she's here. David Constant.
Hello.
Chris Farrow.
Present.
Scott Talley.
Here.
Jeff Miller.
Here.
Aaron Ramos.
Right here.
Billy Pierce.
Hi.
Jody Gold.
here,
Nathan Polsky.
he's here. He went to the bathroom.
Potty break.
Okay, there's Michelle.
Michelle Whittington is present.
Okay. Then, yeah, it looks like we're okay with that for now. We'll work on the filing and the administrative side of that later. That's straightened out.
What district? 21?
24 is what she said.
The next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anybody in the gallery that wants to address the body here today?
I'd like to read a letter from one of my constituents.
I guess
Public comment.
my understanding is public comments is for the gallery. We have our announcement stuff later, but I'm okay. Like, I actually wanted to, with the body's permission, I'd find to hear a letter on behalf of your constituent. And then I'd like to ask Ms. Moore to make a couple of announcements that will be more useful now than they will be later in the day, since we have this little time block to work with. Is that okay with y'all? Any objection to that? Okay, then Scott, go ahead.
Okay. This is from Patrick Mitchell. Dear members of SLEC, I'm sorry that I'm unable to be with you this weekend. This is the first SLEC meeting I have missed in 4 years, but this weekend I'm working on redoing the budget for the LNC. There are a couple of things I want to talk to you about that you'll be voting on today. First is the resolution against the Kennedy Joint Fundraising Committee. The claim it makes that this violates the bylaws. I was going to go one by one over each bylaw it claims to violate.
Okay,
That
stop for just a second.
Yes,
While we get into the, I feel like there's some backseat driving going on here. And I'd like to ask Mr. Wilford, if it would be appropriate for me to rule that as out of order, or as not appropriate for what we're doing here. Like, we're already,
So-
it's the body to decide what to do with this, or is this, would that be?
I would say that you've asked for objection, nobody's objected at this time. If somebody wanted to raise an objection, they could, but,
Okay.
you know. I mean, you could even raise the objection if you want.
I'm going to defer to the body as much as possible until I'm more comfortable being more, directed as that.
Objection, this is for public comment. That doesn't sound like public comment.
Yeah.
That
that's
sounds
not really
like
what
somebody
public
else is
comment
trying
is.
to
This is
direct the
like-
body on a meeting that we haven't
This
even
is
had.
driving
This is
debate
for-
around the matter before the body later this afternoon. So I'm gonna go back to my original, I'm gonna rule that out of order. It's a public comment section at this time. If anybody wants to feel our ruling, let's go for it, but I don't think that's appropriate right now. So, sorry. Moving along, there's one, Jenny make a couple of comments of interest to the body, I guess, so we don't have to do that later.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. First thing is name badges. Many people have asked me about them. And the history of the name badge situation for the SLEC meeting is Stephen Harris's wife, Katrina, did it as a voluntary thing. And then I spent a lot of years in the gallery going, SLEC needs name badges. And so I went to her house, got the supplies, started it, and it was a very volunteer thing. And as everyone knows, I have been sloughing off things off my plate because I gathered too much at the beginning. And so we don't have name badges this time. And at some point, we'll figure out who's responsible for that. And without being too salty about it, it's not me. Not me. Oh, but
Congratulations.
if you feel called to do the name badges, please get in touch with me. I can tell you how I do it. I can also give you a couple ideas for fundraising that can go along with that have to do with SLEC members.
If you
But
feel motivated to take one for the team, then that's okay too.
yes, that too. Okay, and the other thing is I have freshly printed brochures with me. So if anybody needs them, wants them, for sure. And I have more than this. So if someone's just like, can you please just give me a what? I've got you. I have more than
We did run the trial.
just this one.
Yeah. We'll need to redesign those.
Oh, she got intentions, red cards.
Okay. All right, so we got brochures, we need somebody with name tags. Is there any other comment that anybody wants to make from the now read? I don't see anybody raising a hand or
Okay.
anything, so we'll keep right on moving to the adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have a motion? Okay,
Second.
moved and second. We have a motion to adopt the agenda moved and seconded. Any objection? Great, we're moving right along. Previous meetings, minutes have been posted for a while. Has anybody had noticed any corrections that need to be made or anything we need to change on the minutes? Great, moving right along. And we're moving into the officer reports. Oh, boy. So we'll start with me.
Hey, guys, just quick reminder that whenever you speak, like whenever you make a motion or whenever you second, could you please say your name and your SD so the secretary can capture that in the minutes? I know some of your voices, but not all of them.
Okay, fun fact, discovered this week that this is my 27th executive committee meeting. 26th consecutive executive committee meeting. There's something wrong with me. But here we are.
Masochist.
I'm gonna make the assumption that everybody read the chair report that was posted tonight. And I'm going to touch on it briefly and then basically answer questions around a couple of things that I think might need answering questions about. The first thing I talked about was the staff reorganization that we've been looking at on the forum. It's a proposal to redo the way we organize our departments with a view toward, at first I thought it might just be me, maybe my brain is wired a little differently, but then as I've talked with the other directors and officers, we come together around this revised plan that's posted on the forum. It splits the political action department into two departments with different value propositions. One sells our principles and policies to the legislature. One sells our candidates to the voters, right? So it's a different game, and we want to put those departments in a position to where instead of having to be whipsawed back and forth, from now we're doing this and then we're doing that, we want to have round the calendar pursuit of those objectives. So that's the principal thing. There's some other less major things. Oh, bumping IT into its own section, that's becoming a much more significant. We went from a department of one, which kind of didn't make any sense, it was just a guy, to, this ability to move that under operations, that was more a better organizational role. But since then, we have built out, sorry, Mr. Higgins not here to make his first department report, but we built out that IT section. We have a really good team doing a lot of good work, which is a good thing because I'll go ahead and touch on the second thing. I'm determined to make better use of the tools we have. No point having ruby slippers if you don't know how to use them. And so, we want to be able to, particularly with respect to Nation Builder, our CRM platform, and some other things we want to be able to move into the 21st century and be able to become a data-driven organization. So that's watching the IT section grow into something that really needed to be in its own department and with its own head. That's been fun to watch. So that's the nut of it, I guess. The way this works in our policy is that the chair proposes staff changes to the SLEC, and then it's kind of like a pocket meter or something. If nobody objects or nobody moves to no, Andrew, we don't want to do it that way, then it becomes operational at the end of this meeting, unless somebody takes affirmative action to protest that or try to change it. So is everybody cool with this, or does anybody have an objection, or does anybody really, my purpose here is just, this isn't a motion, I'm just question and answer. Do you have any questions about how this is going to work?
I have a question.
Sure.
And while I'm supportive of the reorganization, I want to know, is there anything that we need to do on the back end to implement, document, or make it standing policy until and unless changed in the future? Is there anything that we need to do to execute on the back end? Anything we need to change? Any manuals, policies, SOPs that we need to update, anything like that?
If we had manuals and policies for the different departments, then we would have to make some changes. That's something I'd like to address later this term and try to develop that. But as it is, then our generic policy manual covers all of this. And
Where does the org chart live?
it's appendix 2 of the policy manual. So that's, and it, for our purposes, the way it's done historically is it's more of a table of organization. It's not really the hierarchical chart. But yeah, if you ever need to reference that, or as we go through these, it will get refiled as part of our policy meeting. That's it for me. Thank you. Mr. Wilbur.
So I assume that this,
Quick, reality check, is this working for y'all? I mean, is this
Yeah.
good enough of me to be?
So
The stream is not.
What?
You are not projecting your voice enough for the stream. I love you.
Fine.
Thank you.
I get it.
Buy a mic stand.
Learn to be around all, anyway.
that's your job. So I assume,
Yeah, louder mic. Okay. Conversation for later. You were gonna say?
I assume that this org structure was developed out in collaboration with the various departments that it affects.
Yes, sir.
But then, you know what they say about assuming. So I think you're answering it now. The first question, it was.
Yes. Sorry, I said that earlier, but I may not, but
It was in
yeah,
your
this,
report, too.
all of the directors and officers were involved in like, just look good to use his work, go, well, and there were some tweaks made, so yeah. we're good.
So my next follow-up question to that is, during that collaborative process, was there any negative pushback given by any of the departments? And if so, I'd be interested in hearing what their opinions, their negative opinions were of the change.
Okay, y'all refresh my memory, you might have.
Our only question is, where does AV go?
Not on there
Nobody
yet.
wants it. It's his own department, should we?
Yeah, no, I don't, nobody really, we just kind of kicked it around, and there were some tweaks, and there's no, it ended up where it ended up.
If the officers are happy and the staff's happy, I don't have any more questions.
Well, I would say, officers and directors.
So, okay. fair
So we didn't go all the way down the chart to make sure everybody was okay with it, but most of the stuff is pretty, it's not necessarily transparent to the individual staff members, but they're, the ones that were doing a thing are still doing a thing, maybe if they're not in the department or something like that. Mr. Westbrook.
Jack Westbrook, SD 31, for the benefit of those of you who don't know me already, you will. And please pardon my ignorance and my lack of due diligence. And so this is a stupid question everybody already knows the answer to. But there's been some discussion about, additional positions, spending money on positions and things like that. Does this chart reflect those positions in any way?
No, it did, well, and it's position singular.
Yeah.
There is a motion later today for a paid consultant that would, for our purposes now, the only relationship, I guess, would be that this person would be, helping us with development, fundraising specifically. And then to that extent would be covering the fact that right now we don't have a nominal development director, like.
But it's not in that org chart.
Well, development director,
That's
but
right.
yeah, consultant's not, because it's
Yeah.
he's an independent contractor.
Okay, thank you. That's all you need to know. Thank
Okay, cool.
Renee.
Renee, Mr. Perez.
Yeah, I was just gonna make I have made communications in respect to the importance of collaboration. Of course, I'm not a director or an office holder, but there has been feedback in regards to the importance of collaboration. Staff members, I've made that known, so, right, yeah.
Yes.
So, she nodded her head.
Mr. Roswell.
I think so, yeah, there was another thing.
That's
Sorry,
right.
I couldn't see him.
Do we have job descriptions for these new roles?
Yes,
Yes.
actually, we do. So,
Okay.
yeah, Chris Coward provided those, yeah, they may not be filed yet, but we have those for basically, the only new-ish roles I get are, well, it doesn't matter, I'm trying to train myself to like keep it aliens on it, but yeah, the answer is yes. So, Ms. Wilford.
Would this be an appropriate point to ask about the relationship between staff and SLEC?
What would your question be about that relationship?
Who does the staff answer to? Is it appropriate for SLEC to ask questions of the directors, the staff members,
Yeah, well, that's why we're having this conversation. Okay, I'll tell y'all what I think, and then if instead of have a conversation around that, or, well, I've got time limits, but I'll, in the context of the chair report, I'll tell y'all what I think, and then if it does not please the body, we can take that up at some other time. We have a really interesting situation now. It was enough of a headache last term to have some directors that were on SLEC and some directors that weren't on SLEC, and so there were some communication issues, and you never kind of really knew how stuff was being interpreted. Right this second, all of our directors are also sitting in this room, so except for Austin, you couldn't be here, but everybody, all of the directors are also on SLEC. And we have started having some conversations around that and the need to maintain situational awareness of which hat you're wearing when you're interacting. Where it's really fuzzy is like these department directors got to come up here and give reports and answer questions for the body. But just from a matter of organizational design, guys, here's how it works or is supposed to work. When we're gathered as a body, we represent LP Texas, and the decisions that come out of this body represent the will of LP Texas, and then I am chair is in charge with implementing that and taking that and running the staff. The staff's job is to fulfill that mission. That the staff's job is not to you know, what's the other quote? You know, ours is not the reason why, ours is the do or die, right? Like, so from a staff perspective, it's just about getting work done, right? So it's a different mindset, and it's a hierarchical deal. There's management, reporting, and it's a command and control structure, and that's what it is. That's what it's for. So you can efficiently mobilize a large group of people to do a thing, right? You need division of labor, areas of responsibility, accountability. So that's how that works. And here it's all collegiate. It's a fraternal kind of thing. We're all on the same page. No SLEC rep has, from my point of view, and as a matter of my experience in organizational design, and I think this is how government works, no SLEC rep has that specific individual authority to start backseat driving or interacting with staff directors in such a way that they're trying to implement a personal point of view or personal beef they have or something like that with the staff. I'm the pivot point. If we had a formal executive director, that person would be in charge. That person would have no role on SLEC and would just be about driving results. I'm in kind of an ambiguous situation. Jesse and I have kind of worked out how we want to handle the transmission link, the U-joint between SLEC and staff, and I think we can make it work. But it's two separate headspaces, two separate sets of responsibilities, and two different ways of making decisions and getting shit done. Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Request for information.
Okay,
Ms. Wilbur, that's okay.
For Ms. Wilford.
Yeah. A lot of her questions.
Okay, quickly.
Yeah, is there something driving that question specifically that causes you concern? Because I'm lost.
A private conversation between myself and staff member, but additionally having been on staff for several years and been on SLEC for several years, I know that it's been kind of an ambiguous idea for a long time. And so when I heard that a conversation happened among officers and directors, I thought it might be prudent following that conversation for a discussion to happen among SLEC, so expectations could be set. And can I clarify, it sounds like the quick and dirty is SLEC as a body tasks staff, which is executed through you, and that it is inappropriate for any individual SLEC member to attempt to task staff themselves outside of the will of SLEC.
Yes, I believe, and it's.
I'm sorry, request for permission, could you go through that again?
Yeah,
That sentence got broken, I'm sorry, I wanted to listen to it.
Request for information, can you actually ask everybody to silence their phones?
Yeah, please silence your phones, personal privilege, and then let me just repeat what I think you just said, and that's probably good for all of us. Bottom line, in your individual capacity as a SLEC rep, if you have an observation, criticism, or question for staff, the best thing you can do with that is bring it to me, And we can have that conversation, and I'll have a sense of whether, like, is this something we can just run with, or is this something we're gonna take to the body? You know, or I realize you have strong feelings about it, but there's no way you're gonna get a motion to the body, so just drop it and get over it, right? Like, we can have that conversation, that it would be better for the staff and it would be better for the mission of the organization, not for them to have to answer the phone or deal with every Discord question that comes up from any individual, from 50 people, right? So that just doesn't work very well. It's a practical thing. Okay, last question, Mr. Wilford, and I gotta do the other one. Oh, sorry.
Motion after Mr. Wilford.
A motion?
A motion.
Okay,
I have two questions, but the first one's gonna be very quick. Do we have a timekeeper for this meeting?
not formally, no. I've been trying to monitor this on my phone here.
Would you like me to do that?
I would love to.
Okay, I'll try that.
Thank you, John.
Now to the meat and potatoes. As someone who has sat in various different levels of both organizations, I am largely sympathetic and agree with the spirit of what you're saying. I am very often critical of the LNC, but I will tell you one thing that I feel like the LNC did very well. And I think this is largely driven by the level of paid staff they have versus what we have. They have really good HR policies around their staff structure and the LNC. And while I appreciate what you're saying, while I think that is the correct way it should be done, if that is what we want our policy as an organization to be, and I encourage us to adopt it, we seriously need to look at adopting that first into our policy manual, because that is where we keep our HR policies. And then secondly, we need to give that just a little bit of teeth in the bylaws of SLEC, because until then, it is anyone, even including the chairs, interpretation and personal opinion on what that is, and I don't know how well that holds water at the end of the day.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and so that becomes an action item for coming out of this meeting. We can either try to run that on forum, or if necessary, we can bring it to the November meeting. But yes, let's have that conversation about, if I get this, what do we need to tweak, and then build that into our policy. I think that's appropriate. Where are we on time? We have
a motion.
You got a motion. Well, we have a notice of intent to make a motion.
I'll be transparent, the motion is to extend time.
Okay.
It's like you're doing.
Okay, for how long?
I want to make a motion to extend time for 15 minutes, because I think this is critically important. And I think there are a lot of questions about how that came about, what the interview process was, and how we're going to go through this moving forward. Not that I object to it, but that I think it's important for this body to understand a governance role versus an operational role and what that means. Again, I'm not opposed to it. I just think it's been completely opaque. So we said, we're not having a development director. Then we came back a minute ago and said, we are going to run a development department, and we're going to start it with this guy. And we just need to be really precise on how we appoint people into it. And I think we should discuss it.
Okay, that's 31 second motion.
I think Joe already did, but anyway, so it's a little less formal maybe than it should have been, but he made his intent clear. Motion to extend time for 15 minutes, got seconds. So I'm just saying, we have a motion on the floor to extend time for 15 minutes. You've already heard his argument in favor of his motion. Does anybody object to the motion?
Objection.
Object, okay, it's y'all's agenda, so anybody want to speak to the objection?
I'll speak to the objection briefly. While I agree that conversations need to take place, and this is definitely worth discussing, this is not a working meeting. This is an execution meeting, and conversations like that are best done in candor, not on a live stream. And so I would suggest to folks who think that conversation still needs to be had, that the proper execution is to either trust the judgment of the folks who have had those conversations, or if you still have more questions, then make a motion to table this and push it to a future date. But those kind of detailed, candorous conversations probably not suited for the purpose of this executive live meeting and on live stream.
Okay, it sounds like you've got some support, and we just say it's not my purpose to get into the debate. It's y'all's agenda. I will say that I'm not trying to push anything through over your objection. Like, in other words, I'm totally open to having that conversation with whoever wants to have it. I could schedule a Zoom call for next week or something, or like there are other ways we could address that.
Point of parliamentary inquiry.
We have a parliamentary, inquiry.
Over here, parliamentary inquiry. I've heard twice, once that somebody wants to raise objection and now later that somebody's supposed to table this. I just want to make sure I'm aware of where we are. There are no other motions on the floor. There's nothing to table, nothing to object to. This is a Q&A session. Am I correctly understanding this agenda item?
The agenda item was my report, which I styled as
But there's no pending business that we're objecting to or tabling or anything like that.
There's a motion to extend time.
I make a motion to extend time because I figured this would be easy to deal with. Y'all just vote it up or down. Is there anybody else that wants to speak on?
Sure, I'd like to call a question.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody object to calling the question?
Objection.
We have an objection. Okay, so 2/3 vote. All in favor of calling the question, raise your hand, please. All opposed to calling the question, that passes. That question has been called, so now we're going to vote on whether to extend time for 15 minutes. Is it?
Request for information.
Okay.
Is the extension of time just the chair's report or something specific within the chair's report?
It would be an extension of time of the chair's report.
Okay.
Unless somebody.
Request for information.
I agree with Mr. Wilford, I didn't hear any other.
Piggybacking on what Jeff asked, do you have anything else in the chair's report that needs to be discussed other than this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Yeah, so keep that in mind. And so now we're going to vote on the motion to extend 15 minutes. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed. Okay, we're going. We're 15 more minutes. Did you have any specific questions you wanted to ask?
No, I heard that people wanted to talk about it, and so the unfortunate thing.
Okay, let's yeah, good point. Let me just say the other thing I was going to say. Let's make sure we don't stay all day on this. I already mentioned the nation building thing. The other thing I wanted to specifically speak on is legal matters. If you've been around, historically, Ms. Billy would provide a separate legal report later in the afternoon. I wanted to go ahead and just handle that as part of my chair report. Not so much for the legal angle, but for what it means to us angle. You should know, or if you don't, then I'm telling you now that we have the matter of the election of filing fees is front and center for us right now, as it has been for the last at least 3 terms, maybe longer. And at this time, we are not, the last 2 times have led to successive lawsuits around what we perceive as attempts to drive us off the ballot or just make it harder for us to participate in the process. We're not doing it this time, partly because we already have 2 lawsuits in the pipeline for government basis, and partly because over time, the legislature has refined their approach to this to where it punches a little harder, and it's harder to argue that it's not a good idea. I'm about to make myself unpopular with some people, I'm afraid, but after reading the documents in both lawsuits and talking with our attorney, I would not. How about this? The Miller case will be heard in the 5th Circuit next week. We set arguments on our appeal from the initial ruling that gave us online ballots. We would not be forced to use paper ballots anymore, but basically poured out the rest of our argument and gave it to the state. The Billiard case that's coming up gives us another bite at the apple, but we know that this judge, same judge, both cases, we know how he thinks.
Point of order.
What?
We are live streaming this, does this need to be executive session?
I do not think so, because most of what I'm saying so far is public record. So
I just.
Yeah, yes. No, I knew somebody was gonna ask that, but, and if somebody hears me saying something that goes over to take this stuff, stop me, but this is pretty much public. Just, my point is that we're gonna know a little bit more in a month or 2 from the 5th Circuit about how things are going. We're gonna know a little bit more, we're gonna know a lot more next spring. There'll be a hearing in January and then a ruling sometime after that. And the most likely outcome of that, based on what we've seen so far out of the courts and the logic of it, is that we're gonna be paying filing fees. And that the best argument we have, the best argument we have in this process is to go for the fairness argument that if they're going to enforce that as a modicum of support, a showing of modicum support on us, like the major leagues, then we should have them subsidizing our primary process, our nominating process, as they do for the big parties. That's a fairness thing, and that is a more powerful argument. That's a better fulcrum to put our lever on to try to move people, whether it's the way we talk about it this summer, or to people who are wondering why our candidates got kicked off the ballot, or to, as we move into the legislative session next spring, we're trying to lobby for a thing. My concern at this point, and as chair, is the messaging. There's still a lot of filing fees are bad kind of messaging going on, bad per se, bad, just bad, evil. And that's one, I'm not gonna argue with that as a proposition, as a value proposition, but as a practical matter, the Overton window is the thing, and I think we should focus the limited resources of this party behind the arguments that will make the biggest impact on people we're trying to persuade. So as we move forward, and as we're dealing with this trauma of having all these people get on the ballot, just pay attention to who's staying in the race, pay attention to who's, either put up some money or getting some petition signatures, or scrambling to try to keep things moving forward. And as we move through this term, we will, in light of the two court rulings that we'll have looking at, then we will develop strategy for how we come into the next campaign session and how we handle those. The most, that's all I'm gonna say about that, because otherwise we might touch on this later. But the only other, the rest of it's all in the report. I mentioned something about what I kind of jokingly call the Steppenwolf strategy. Steppenwolf, fire all your guns and explode into space. I'll be taking a vacation in late August, but have some stuff to do between now and then. And then coming back in September is, by that point, God willing, Greek doesn't rise, World War III doesn't kick into gear, then we will be rolling out a lot of stuff all at once to try to make the biggest splash and the most impact that we can with what we're doing while people are paying attention during this election season. So I think that's it for that. We can go back to whatever amount of questions we have. And do we know how much time we have to finish this part of it?
8 minutes, 42 seconds.
We have Mr. Burns, Mr. Westbrook, and then I see Mr.
Okay, Mr. Burns.
I just wanted to piggyback on what he's saying about the lawsuit. I think that we are at a point where we could get a substantial win by getting them to return our filing fees to our party instead of funding the other party's primaries. And if we can achieve that, we need to get it and get out because we spent a lot of money. We've raised and spent a lot of money on these lawsuits, and these guys are not going to give up. I think filing fees are here to stay. Here's the thing, the one thing that we won't mention is that once our party receives those filing fees, we can do with them what we will. So just keep that in mind as a strategic matter. There's nothing they can do to stop that once we get that law changed.
Take that, man.
Thank you, man.
Take that, man.
It would be a significant win if we can achieve that.
My problem with this thing is that it's.
Whoa, that's out of order.
I'm sorry.
I'll come to this though. Mr.
No, who else is a Moneyball fan, but we need to focus on base hits. Base hits, just keep good base hits, get the runs. Okay.
Mr. Westbrook.
So, my question actually goes right into that, and my question would we be able to, front the filing fees to potential candidates? So they can file as a body, and then when we get that reimbursement from the state, then pay ourselves back? Is that a potential option?
I don't know what the legal technical answer to that is, but I would tell you just from like a business point of view, I'd rather run that to out to our governors and just and to use our social media assets and our email blast and text capability to stir up our base to like, okay, guys, we need funds for this.
How has that worked so far?
We haven't tried. We've been kind of ignoring it. We've been saying, you know, it's wrong for the state to impose these fees.
I guess my question is, what keeping us from doing that social media thing that you're talking about now? Is it a money issue?
Now the filing deadline has already passed and there's no fee to ask for. I mean, there's no. I'm not sure.
I guess what I'm saying is, heretofore, I've received zero help raising money from the Libertarian Party of Texas, in spite of how much money I've donated to it. So what's kept us from doing that? Anyway, I'll let it go.
Yeah.
I'll let it go.
I could just say from the comms perspective, if you do the candidate interview, we promo you. So.
You did a great job.
We're not doing that much. Mr. Rose.
I just want to make just a quick comment that one of the longer serving staff members up in Texas, I don't recall having issues with communication. I've been communicated with directly by different chairs, and I don't recall any issues that would call into question how things are running. From my observation from the first time I started working as a staffer, the first thing that's top of mind for me, and of course this is me, that the chair is the elected representative of the membership, and that's where the authority begins. If I can't handle that, then I probably shouldn't be shouldn't be volunteering my time. So.
Mr. Wilford.
Yeah, two things. How are we on time?
4:30.
All right.
So.
I mean, we'll still be talking at 4:30.
I'm assuming it's my turn, right? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure you weren't asking. So two things. One, and I don't know at this point how much of it is appropriate for me to say during a live stream, but I have had for a long time an elevated insight into the history of this lawsuit, both for when I was the primary contact and having to travel to Austin from time to time to give interviews to lawyers, and then a few times since when I was accidentally, until it was corrected, left on for a few more emails during the transitional period. So I know a little bit about the history, and I generally agree with the statement you're making. My question is, has this position, that I think is probably correct, been run through Oliver and the legal firm for them to confirm their understanding that this is our best shot?
Not yet. I've had multiple conversations with Jared LeBlanc, but have not interacted with Oliver yet. That's coming. I've been trying to make up my mind whether I try to reach out to him before this circuit or just come back afterwards to get the debrief and figure out what's going on.
I would be interested in that opinion, even if we need to do an executive session thing once it's available.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
I think we need to take the win when we don't get it. And my problem with this whole thing is how it's been enforced for us. From the beginning, we've had to pay the Secretary of State, and our money goes to the general fund. For them, for the Democrats and the Republicans, they pay their party, their county chairs or their state chair. They make a check out to the Republican state party or the Democrat state party. That's the same thing we should do if we're gonna have a filing fee, is make a check out to the Libertarian Party of Texas. That I would be okay with, because at least it's fair how this is being done to us. And there's make no question, this is being done to us because we put up a lot of candidates and they found a way to get us out. And now we're down to 25 candidates. There is no question. I'm just making comments here about it.
Thank you.
What?
Is there anybody else?
Miss Barney. Miss Barney.
Go ahead.
Ms. Barney.
Susan Barney, ST25. So I agree that the focus on winning, not worrying, having filing fees, but going for the issue of fairness and being paid back. But if we win the case and it's a point of information, would at that point, how those fees are handled would be voted on by the body, or how would that be on? Because you still have the issue of filing fees being a huge barrier to candidates recruitment, especially for lower positions. I had to help accounting. We were running one person in Blanco. It was only $700, but it was a huge burden to get that filing fee made. If there's not going to be any reimbursement or some type of support, that is continuing to be a barrier to us growing candidates for positions.
Sure, and that will have to be developed in as part of the process of the legislation that would actually make that so.
Okay.
And then we'll have to figure out what kind of stipulations you put on it coming back to us. Then we'll have to figure out what to do with it. So down the road a little bit.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the Democrats and Republicans refund the filing fees to their winning candidate in the primary.
Really?
So my understanding, so take that as like a guide for the Libertarian Party. Whoever runs normally is our nominee. Whoever's paid would have paid the filing fee in this scenario we're talking about, would have paid the filing fee, and then
It's not
well,
That's basically.
but we could theoretically refund the filing
There's
fee.
all usually only one candidate, right?
Mr. Tally, we'll
Yeah,
get 20 some odd seconds, just so you
Just
know.
kind of piggybacking off of what a few people in here said, including Jack. I don't think it's the party's position to be paying back these filing fees. What we should be doing is giving resources to the county chairs, to the candidates,
Okay.
and helping them raise that money, helping them reach out to constituents to donate. Those resources is what's more important than just handing people a check.
Is that time? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
That's basically all I had to say.
Take time by 3 minutes.
Jack?
Jack.
Okay, we have an objection. Anybody got anything to say about that? We just want to.
I didn't hear a second.
A second. I'll second.
There was
No second.
I'll second.
We have a second?
I second. I second.
There, we're second.
Polsky.
You're seconding?
No.
Well, Kyle seconded.
And-
Oh, you objected.
Somebody asked who was in the queue.
You're seconding this, and he objects, so now we need to talk about it, or we just vote?
Nathan was the only one who still had a question, right?
I only had like a less than 30-second thing to say.
How long it's been to ask this question?
That's not.
Yeah.
Motion to extend for 3 minutes, so everybody in favor?
3 minutes.
Everybody opposed? What the heck? Nobody voting.
Try it.
Let's try that one more time. That's it. That's
3.
It must be 3 minutes.
1, 2, 3.
The motion on the floor is to extend the time for 3 more minutes. Okay, with that new understanding, all in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, that motion passes. We got 3 minutes. Let's make it happen.
All right, Nathan Polsky, SD8. I just wanted to remind everybody that some of the discussions going on right now is more of a political strategy, and this is a public forum. So if there is any of those discussions, please keep them probably private or in not a public scenario.
Okay, and on that note, I think
I just need to revise my remarks because I misspoke earlier when I said that nothing had been done to help me. This time, I've had Nathan and Jacob and Amanda all reach out to me to help me with what I'm doing. And we're doing a great job in that direction. We're improving. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. I want to move to suspend the rules to allow us to consider the board changes and process board changes as today's deadline. Because we have no other option, right?
Jack?
Second.
Well, I mean, you have options. This is.
No, the rules say it's either opposed today or that's it.
I agree.
I think he's correct.
Yeah.
And I'm sensitive to Billy. Billy was right, and Nathan was right as well.
I agree that that's where our policy meeting says, but I would also assert that I'm a reasonable person.
I'm no argument.
We can work out whatever it is to work out, but.
I object to that. I object to tabling, removing it today.
Okay, so I don't know if we got a second. Did anybody second?
Request for information, can you clarify what the motion was?
Suspend the rules to allow us.
Motion to suspend the rules to move that we just postpone this, in other words. Table it.
Wait, is that
The
the right
org-
term?
Future conversation.
For the org restructure?
The org
It's
restructure.
not really a table, it's delay implementing.
Point of
Yeah.
order. Point of order.
PO,
Yes, please. What is your point?
The org structure is not a motion,
It's not.
and therefore it cannot be tabled. We can
You're
pick
here.
up a conversation
Okay,
anytime.
right. Thank you.
But it has to be executed.
No.
So the motion has to take the automatic approval out. There's no other option, I don't think.
Unless we object to it, we have, that work is executed.
Done.
I'm going to end my report now and maybe over the lunch break, have a chance to determine what the best way to handle this is in the afternoon new business section. Yes, ma'am?
I've actually already started a thread on the forum regarding this particular topic.
Yeah.
And SLEC can change the org structure however they want to with a simple majority vote if after some discussion we don't like this.
time.
Yes, ma'am. That point is well taken. That would be another route to the same end. If there are any corners to be polished off, we can do that. Go ahead.
So has there been a motion of any sort to do that? There has not, right?
No.
To accept that organizational chart and how you run your business?
None is required.
Yes, but we're out of time.
Orders of the day.
And orders of the day say we move on.
Ooh, what is the order of the day?
Vice Chair report,
Well,
Ms. Cower.
is it at the same time?
Point of procedure, though, is at what point can we take that option?
That doesn't change.
Lunch or the recess or something.
Okay, this. Talk about this.
All right, gang, I'm gonna try to get all the way through the report, and then we'll go to questions after that, rather than doing the Q&A intro report. Cool? All right.
Yes.
All right, so, since April, first thing that I had on my plate obviously was a national convention. So for those of you who were delegates to national convention, come see me if you give me your button back whenever you left, because I kept all those buttons. So if you want your button as a souvenir, I got it. Okay. The national convention, as far as the delegation chair thing, I tried really hard to apply lessons learned from past national conventions, just kind of like what worked, what didn't, based on feedback that I heard from folks who were delegates along with myself. So I really hope that you guys felt like it went more smoothly this time around. If you were an alternate, I hope that you feel like you were seated timely and that you weren't just sitting out there waiting in the wings and, while we didn't have a full delegation. I'm not going to go through like every bullet in the report as far as like what all I did there, but I did want to give a shout out to some folks who helped out with the counting. So Jocelyn and Mike were on the Texas Teller team, and then also Bonnie Coward and then Nathan Kinman. So they helped make that a very, very smooth process. There was one vote, which was, of course, the multi-position vote that took a long time. And I think that's just the nature of the beast with the delegation of our size. So I'll try to think of ways that we can streamline that better in the future, but I got nothing more to say. That is it for national. And again, welcome feedback from any of you guys who are delegates or alternates on how we can make that better next time around. Switching gears to state convention now, talking Corpus Christi, wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that we did do the state convention survey again this year. So this is the second term that we've done that. was the exact same questions that we did in 2022. That way we could trend it, see how we're improving in different areas. And so that's really the difference between this report and the 2022 report. Was it wasn't just reporting the results. It's like, okay, now how did that stack up against 2022? I think that, just to kind of executive summary that, I think everything went really, really well. I think that in terms of constructive criticism or, you know, areas of improvement, I think the venue, that was one thing. And I think, you know, I don't want to still joke Senator for her events report and everything, but I think that there is, you know, some angst about like the convention and not being actually in the hotel, and then the weird, you know, walk through the parking garage and all that good stuff. So that was one thing that came up out of that that survey. Another thing, of course, was balloting, which is just like a perennial thing. Like how can we validate more quickly? How can we make people understand what NOTA means before we vote? So that's a good lessons learned as far as kind of pre-convention training and things like that. But other than that, it's out on the forum. I have it linked in the report, so please check that out. And if you have any questions or any feedback on how we could make that survey go be better, I'm open to it. All right. And as far as like staff and just kind of general governance things I've been working on, so like Andrew said, we've basically split up the executive director. So we don't have an XD right now. So Andrew and I have kind of just taken the staff departments and split them. So I'm kind of doing the erstwhile political action departments, campaign support and legislative action, and then events. And then Andrew's got IT, comms, affiliate support, and development. Yeah. And then of course Joe is working with Jocelyn kind of as a finance department. So that's how the split is, just for those of you who are curious about how that's working. So, and I did partner with Andrew to talk about the org structure changes, how we split that up, and did draft those new job descriptions for the new director roles. So that's the campaign support director and the to be identified legislative action director. More on that in a little bit. All right, so those are drafted. They're not McKnight yet because they are in draft. They're still kind of like going through the motions to get approval. So I did meet with the political action department this past week just to make sure that everybody was aware of all the org structure changes that were coming, so nobody was hearing that for the very first time today. And then also because we do have some folks in the department who don't sit on SLEC and don't come to these meetings, wanted to make sure that they were all aware as well. On that note, speaking of political action department, for those of you who are acquainted with Eugene Flynn, reach out to him. He's had a rough go of it, just health-wise and everything. I won't go into details here or anything, but if anybody has any questions about Eugene, come see me during the break or over lunch and everything, and I can kind of get you up to speed. All right, other things I worked on was just went in and did like a data mining job on the Secretary of State website, looked at our statewide races, like specifically the ones that keep us in ballot access, going back to 2012, talked about that with the political action team. Big thing happening there is we can see where the filing fee started, where we started having drop off and having a candidate in every single ballot access race. But one of the things that we kind of taken as an action item on this is that a lot of the judicial races, like Supreme Court Justice, the judge for the Court of Criminal Appeals, we used to have somebody. I mean, those are staggered things. So you have like a couple of people like every cycle, but we kind of drop off in that. So one of the things I've challenged the campaign support team on is to go into Nation Builder and mine for all of our supporters who are attorneys and everything, so we can start reaching out to those folks and see if we can get people to run for those judicial positions, because we ideally want to have somebody in all of those ballot access races. So we will be talking a little bit later this afternoon about the campaign support fund. So I'll kind of table that. That's a separate motion that will be this afternoon. But I did kind of research and write that motion. And then another motion, which was on the forum a couple of months back that I researched and drafted was the update to the policy manual to approve our bookkeeper to make authorized disbursements. So thank you guys for everyone who asked questions about that and voted on the forum, so that did pass. Nation builder training, there was a group of us who did 4 sessions over the course of a couple of weeks. That was very informative. We did have an on-site for officers a couple of weeks ago, and then we actually just resumed our directors meetings this actually Thursday. So we'll be Andrew and I will be meeting with all of the directors on a bi-weekly basis just to make sure that we're staying up to speed on what's going on in each of the departments and everything. And we're really just making sure that we're not working in silos and we've got some cross-department integration going on. And people are getting support from the other departments. Andrew and I will be in it. So
Here.
So, in terms of like affiliate or candidate support, I did go to a fundraising event for Chase Oliver on the 28th of June. That was in Houston. And then I worked the Houston Pride event with Harris County that next day on Saturday. With that said, if you have any like weekend events, because I do have a day job, but if you do have any events happening in your counties or SDs and you just want an officer to come out to it, or to speak or just help volunteer, let me know, and I'm happy to do that. So in terms of what's coming up, recruit a legislative action director. Okay. I'll make sure that we got that. All right, and we are starting a project planning phase for the ledge session. So this isn't going to be one of those hair on fire, like we figure out how we're going to run the ledge. We're starting now. So the legislative session, it convenes January 14th, and the regular session at least is going to adjourn in June. So we are starting on that now. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I want to make sure that I plug something that an initiative that Anastasia is leading. So we'll talk about that in the legislative action report a little bit later. But then in terms of other things I've got coming up, I'm going to be in Plano for the Bloom Festival in September. Andrew and I are going to be attending the Liberty International World Conference in Grapevine in November. And then it's just, continue to do the thing. So that is everything that I have in my report. So questions? Pierce, and then Westbrook.
Okay, Fred John, thanks so much for the support that you gave us in Harris County, as well as the political action department. Question, in furtherance of our efforts to find candidates, to find skilled people with certain skill sets, licenses, and such, what is the appropriate vehicle methodology? How do folks in these positions or departments request and get nation builder access so they can do that work? Is there a formal request for access, or who monitors and doles out that access and monitors the activity? Where's the structure?
Yeah, so as someone who's on staff, and it's like obviously you have an NDA on file, so Nathan can probably help you get connected and get them access to Nation Builder. Do we have like a certain number of licenses or information? Okay. Yeah. So I think there's some functionality in Nation Builder where we can, use tags or what have you to identify people who got.
But if somebody needs that access, who they email to access? That's all.
And I would say start with your director.
Okay.
And then from there, if he has any questions, he would kind of come with to me and Andrew on that. But yeah, I would say start with your director.
Thanks.
Okay.
Time has expired.
Time's expired.
Sorry.
Okay. I think there was one more question. Do you want to All right. Next item.
Next item is reports.
Next item is a report from the secretary.
Well, my term started off interesting, and the learning curve and learning the behind the scenes of how to do some of the software programs. Thank you, everyone, for all your help and understanding as we had to do forms and redo some forms as I learned how all the things worked. So some of the things I've been working on since taking office is updating everything that changes we made at convention. The bylaws updates, our change to the SLEC manual, and our updated change to help with getting SLEC members back on. Updated the platform from convention, the policy manuals, updated the policy sunset dates from the ones that were updated at convention, so and highlighted what's coming up next to the next convention, which one will be sunsetting. The county bylaws template, the affiliate team we're still using the current one that they updated on January 9th of 22. After our first select meeting after convention, John Peterson resigned after reading through the paperwork and decided this was not for him. So, as far as the updating of all the county chairs, I left to the affiliate team with Lisa and Jacob for update. The since state convention, these are the 4 counties that have been affiliated, and Jake will go into more detail in his report. The candidates, due to the situation of what's going on with the candidates and who's being removed and who hasn't been notified and who has been notified, Nathan Polsky's been updating me and giving me the list, and he's gonna go into more detail in his report about our candidates. For staff, we have what's on the website, except for Jenny's picture still on there. Here.
We should like leave it on there.
But I did attach the list of all the current staff members and their positions. Currently actively, in active coalitions, we do not currently have any active, but these are the ones that we are in coalition with. For me, I did attend nation building training with the officers and other members, which I did learn a lot about how nation builder works. We did have an officer on-site meeting. With conjunction with my role in Harris County, I did attend the Chase Oliver fundraising event. As Harris County, pride was mine for community outreach, so I didn't include that as a secretary role because that was my job for Harris County. Upcoming events, I am attending the Plano Bloom Festival.
Woohoo!
So let me know because if you have anything coming up, like Jesse, teaching is a weekday job for me. So anything on weekends, and if there's something like Plano where I need to take a day off of work to attend, or election watch party. Because after watching the elections, there's no going to work the next morning. So if there's anything that you want me to attend, please let me know. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I just want to make a comment. Although I know there is no paperwork regarding coalition with the Texans for Responsible Marijuana policy, there is active communication going on between us and them. And just a little side note for those who are new to SLEC, unaware, that the Texans for Responsible Marijuana policy is a coalition in and of itself. And we are considered coalition partners with all of the other members. So when you see things, thank you. So when you see things like, say, for example, Texas Normal or Texas Cannabis Group or the Veterans, Texans for Veterans for Cannabis, we're all partners. And feel free to mention that or ask me about it. I'll be more happy to help out with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item is the treasurer's report.
Woo.
Kyle, if you would scroll down to the balance sheet, it's going to be right after financial notes. Right there. So I'm gonna make my presentation very short. I mean, I put everything I could into the report, including an extensive notes section. I know you guys didn't get a lot of chance to review that. I'm gonna touch the highlights because I kind of feel like there are gonna be questions regardless of how much time I spend. So we're gonna spend the majority of this doing Q&A. I would say, looking at the overall picture, the big picture, our financial health is good. We're sitting on $230,000 worth of assets. It was breaking up earlier for him. I don't know what's going on tonight, but anyway, so yeah, we're sitting on $230,000 worth of assets. Kyle, if you want to scroll down to the income statement for the convention, I want to hit this highlight. Yeah, I'm gonna come back to that statement on here in a second. If you keep scrolling down to the bottom line, roughly $58,000 in net income is what the convention generated for us, which is amazing. A very important factor here, if you'll scroll back up for a second, Kyle, is the vote with your dollars. That was huge for us. And that was $51,000 of our profit. So it's important that we continue that when we can in the future. Sorry.
It's the cord.
It's the cord, yeah.
Scroll back down to the bottom. There's a key note here to give an accurate depiction of the success of this event. Donations received at convention or as a result of the convention were included here. So you've got 20,000 roughly lifetime memberships and another 9,000 that was raised gala one-time donations at convention. So that's roughly $30,000 was raised as a result of the convention. I chose as an accountant to include this on this income statement. You would typically put these types of things in our regular income statement, but you can't account for it in both places. If you leave it on the regular income statement, it doesn't give an accurate picture here. If you leave it here, it doesn't give an accurate depiction there. So just be aware, you can't count income in two places, which is kind of what we all did when we approved the budget. So let's go ahead and go to the budget, Kyle. The very top of the budget. Yeah, all the way to the top. So you'll see the third line item is convention fundraising. We as a body approved a $20,000 budget line item. The problem is you can't count this in two places. Lifetime memberships raised at convention can either be counted in membership or in convention fundraising, but not both. So the next time we do the budget, we need to keep this as a subset or a footnote. You can say that you want a budget for 30,000 raised at convention, but if that's already in other categories, it can't be separate. It has to be a subsection. So we actually, when we set our budget, we didn't set it for 193,000 revenue, we set it for 173, which it's really semantics, but it's important to note because if you're counting on us hitting budget, then it's kind of important. What we're doing from a net income standpoint, go ahead and scroll down to the very bottom of the budget, because we've got about 10,000, at this point for this 6 months, we've got about 10,000 in profit. So we were projected with that change to the budget, we were projected at a loss of around 6,000. So we're doing well from a net income standpoint. We're not hitting the income revenue that we want to hit, but we're also not spending the expenses that we budgeted for. So as a net result, we're doing okay. But we're nowhere near where we want to be for income. We'd like to keep bringing that income in. We'd like to keep being able to spend that money accordingly. So going back to the point of.
Can you just project?
Yeah, just talk loud. It's a cord. Yes, because he can talk loud enough. It's good. Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. So sitting on that $230,000 in assets. So as a business owner, we have things like retained earnings and equity, right? So it's good to stash cash, but what we're doing, that cash is doing absolutely nothing for Liberty if it's sitting in our bank accounts.
Facts.
We are mandated to have a reserve of, I believe, 5,000, and we've got 10,000 in that reserve account. But effectively, that entire $230,000 is a reserve if it's not being spent. I'm not suggesting, however, that we run a negative income for however long it takes to burn that to zero, right? But keep in mind that it, again, is doing nothing for us if we're not spending it. So we need to find ways to put this money to use to further our goals in whatever way you guys see fit. I've got some opinions on that, but I'll save them for another discussion. So as my job as treasurer, I feel this is the most important thing I can get across to you guys today is we have cash, let's get it spent. With a significant footnote that we cannot continue on the income statement that we're running currently. Because if you look at the 6 months here, we're showing a net income of $10,000 per year. But included in our income for this income statement for this first 6 months is that roughly $30,000 of funds raised in convention that will not be raised in the last half of this year. So this is a forewarning that at the end of the year, we're going to come up, if we continue on the pattern we're at, we're going to come up with about a $20,000 shortfall or a net loss at the end of the year. Does that matter to you? Maybe, maybe not, because again, we're sitting on $230,000. I would say there's another motion coming up later today that would help to make sure that we're bringing in income, and we need to seriously consider that. If you'll, we'll get your questions.
I'm getting on the list.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get in line.
Okay, I heard.
Sorry, I was already counting.
You can keep talking.
Well, I know, Andrew had just said, he's like, put me on the list, I was writing, and then the answer that while I was writing. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry, I'm not sure the exact, I got Emily, I got Anna, I've got Sean, I've got.
Billy was next.
Billy, and Renee, and Jack.
We saw that on camera.
Mm-mm.
Me too.
You're gonna stand here, so I can see that.
All right, so I wanted to clarify something that confused Andrew, so I don't know if it confused him, it would probably confuse you. When I mentioned you can't count income in two places, you can't do that within QuickBooks, within our accounting software. So when you're looking at the two income statements I provided, you've got a convention income statement and you've got the party's income statement. Okay, so income can only be counted in one place or the other, okay? With the budget, it's different though. The budget is done by a hand counted spreadsheet. So scroll back up to income. I want to make sure this is really clear in our budget because this is difficult to get your head wrapped around. The reason we show $173,000 budgeted, even though this body budgeted $193,000, is because that budget counted that income in two places, and it can't be done that way. So while I have a line item up there for convention fundraising of $20,000, that 20 is not added in to get to the total of $173,000 on this budget, right? So when you're seeing the reports of the income statements, it is only added in on the convention income statement. Each income statement, when you look at them, there's a footnote at the bottom that explains what's going on there. Because when you look at our regular income statement, it shows like I want to say an $18,000 loss. When you add that money back in to the regular income statement, you arrive at the $10,000 profit that we are showing on the budget. Now that everybody's.
Where are you adding that back in?
Where?
You're saying you don't include the 20 here, but you're saying you put it back in somewhere else.
No, I'm saying it's, okay, it is counted twice on the budget. So for instance, the lifetime memberships of, so when you look at, as of June 30th, for instance, let's take membership, and you see roughly $46,000 in membership that was achieved in that 6 months. That includes those lifetime members that were raised at convention.
That's the part.
So that number's already counted there. There's an $8,700 worth of unrestricted one-time donations at convention. That is included in the general donations unrestricted. So both of these numbers include that $30,000 that we raised at convention. So I can't then write it in here because you'd be double counting. Right. Okay. So if you scroll down, you're gonna see the profit is roughly, keep that number in mind. So that's where we're at. Technically, that is our profit of $10,000. Go ahead and take me down to the income statement, not the convention, the next income statement. So you'll see on this income statement, we're showing a negative 18,571. So if you look at those, you're like, hey, why do we show 10 grand in profit here? Why do we show $18,000 loss here? It's specifically because of those two numbers. Because those two numbers are included on the other income statement. When you add that two bits of income back to this, you end up at the 10,676. This is a matter of accounting in QuickBooks. You can't account for So I'm going to have significant input on the budget, or I'm gonna pull my hair out. And just while I'm thinking about it, Jocelyn, thank you.
Yes.
A ridiculous amount of work. I myself have logged at least 150 hours just getting our books back on track. I'm not gonna complain, I'm just gonna say that the details are in the notes for anybody that wants to know how that time was spent. We still have a significant amount of time yet to spend to get us back to where we're accounting for things as accurately as possible. But Jocelyn has been a key factor in that. I would have had to spend double that amount of time to figure out where we were and get things sorted out, without her. So anybody pisses her off, they'll answer me.
Yes.
But me on you want. I'm fine. But ultimately, this is the picture of where we're at. I do have while kind of chastising the room on the budget, I've got a couple of other things. Kyle, can you scroll back to the budget point? Go back all the way to the top. So let's go ahead and hit the shop while we're at it, because I know there's going to be questions on that. So for the shop income, we're showing $2,373 in income for the shop. The shop in the past ran on Shopify, which was charging us a monthly fee regardless of how many shirts we sold. We were consistently coming up losing money. Amanda and Polsky have turned that around. We're making a profit now, I'll say close to 500 for this 6 months. It doesn't show up here because of expenses. So if you'll scroll down to the expense side, you're gonna see the shop expense.
Right there.
Okay, so there's your storefront. So we're showing 2,300. Now, there's one error on our part. 150 of that should be under the graphic design heading for Canva. But also in that, so if you subtract out the 150, that expense drops. Also in that is a couple of months worth of Shopify. The expenses that carried on from January and February that wouldn't normally be there. So to get an accurate depiction of what that shop's doing, you're at roughly 2,300 in income and roughly 1,800 in expenses for the first 6 months. So the shop's profitable. There are bigger fish to worry about in my mind in all of it. But that's important to know. One of the things SLEC did in July 9th, and you will note I abstained from voting on this, was what you guys did on July 9th was move some budget money from the storefront, which had a budget of $4,500, it now has a budget of $2,000, and it will go over budget. While it's not right now because of the error, it will be over budget, or I think it may be.
It is.
Shopify included, it's still barely over budget.
Yes.
It is over.
So
budget.
you can't budget a variable expense and put a cap on it without killing the income associated with the variable expense. So luckily, or at least John may know better than me here, but I check our governing documents, I see no teeth anywhere about going over budget on anything. But let's assume there were some sort of teeth to going over budget. When you tell your t-shirt shop that you can only spend $3,000 this year, or $4,000, or $10,000 for that matter, you're basically telling them that you hit that point, you have to stop selling t-shirts. And that's ridiculous. I'm thinking of another R word. It's ridiculous. So I want that shop expense to be $100,000, because if it is, her gross profit margin means we got 120 or 130,000 in income coming into matching. The concern in budgeting should be the percentage, not the exact amount. We should be targeting a percentage, which we already do in the credit card processing fees, which I don't think are on the screen yet. I think we budgeted them at 5%, and we're hitting roughly 3% or less on credit card fees. You don't budget a solid number on credit card fees because you know it is a percentage of income. Same way with the shop income. Shop expenses could be considered cost of goods sold to an extent if we were selling goods and not receiving donations.
It is, they are donating and they get an item.
Yeah, there's some, I haven't gotten into this with TEC yet, but I plan on refining that. The policy has been so far that, TEC has directed that we are not a shop, we cannot sell goods. therefore we can only receive donations. And to y'all's credit, thank you, I think the smartest thing we can do is mirror what the GOP does with theirs. Because whether it is an actual defense to the rules or not, it is very much a pragmatic defense in that if you come after us for doing it, you have to go after them too. So if we're doing things the same way they're doing them, to me, that's a defense I would use to PC if they ever have a problem with what we're doing, the way we're approaching that. So I think that's really everything I have.
Point. Limited edition gold point.
We have a queue of people.
Yeah.
Who was next?
Next, Ms. Colford.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, hell yeah. Okay. We covered that one. So a couple of these are just status of where we're at. So it looks like on financial software, we are over budget for where we are in the year. Is there an expectation for, are we going over budget on that item? Or are we expected to go over budget on that item? Or is there some sort of course correct already implemented or planned to be implemented?
Give me the name of that item again.
Oh, sorry, that is financial software under executive expenses.
Right
there.
We're at 900 on that. That, I would be willing to bet the reason that was budgeted at 1,400 would be because we were only looking
Are
at.
you talking about the website, Moving Gateway?
No, I'm talking about financial software, 2 lines down.
So we pay a little over 100 a month for. No, we pay roughly a little over 100 a month for QuickBooks, which is probably why we are budgeted for 1,400. I don't believe when this budget was set, we had factored in the Zapier fees.
Okay.
And then we had some leftover from Commerce Sync, so we are going to be probably a few $100s over budget, I would think, by the end of the year on that one.
Okay.
I would suspect, and maybe more. It might be that gets solved with an upcoming motion, because I intend to get this body to give me some money to get with an accountant and get some professional help.
Okay.
Which will increase our expense on that side by at least several thousand. But I would look to address that in any motion I make there.
Okay. The status of the discretionary spending in the executive category. What are we at there? Does it look like this is something we've got expenses that we should have been expecting, that we should have been budgeting for, that we're not?
No, the vast majority, I think that 3,000 is the training.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Instead of coming to you guys and making a motion, he saw the discretionary money sitting there and did what you should do.
Something perhaps we should budget for next time as a training line item for executive?
That's up to him and how he wants to set his budget. I just report the facts.
Are there plans for splitting up the budget item for the political action department, since we're splitting it into candidate and, okay, cool.
I will say this, when it comes to splitting up the budget, because it looks like operations is going away, significant work has to be done to the chart of accounts to get our QuickBooks stuff to line up with our budget. I will oppose any changes to that stuff until the end of the year when we are talking about budget. It's only 2 months away.
Yeah.
The hours that it takes to reclass transactions the way QuickBooks works is a pain in the ass, and it costs us a lot. And we are already over budget. The hospital's probably already spent a number of hours we prepare for weekly to the end of the year, I would imagine by now. So let's do those budget things when budget happens and not make a bunch of micro changes throughout the year.
Cool. So next question, have we yet put the convention profits into the convention fund? And I'm assuming that if we have or will, that is the $29,003.56, because that's less the $20,000 in lifetime and less the unrestricted donations.
Okay, so if you'll scroll down to the notes, financial notes.
Did I miss that one?
Under transfers between accounts. So, I mean, I can just read this to you guys to make it clear. In the past, all donations flowed into the general fund, and then transfers were made to move the money into convention, legal, and legislative action fund supporting them. Thanks to Andrew, we now have a credit card process for all of those accounts. They didn't start until after we were significantly into Vote With Your Dollars and other things. So there was quite a bit of funds flowing into the general fund that needed to move over. In the past, because everything went in the general fund, it was really easy, or not really easy, but relatively easy to go, okay, here's how much income belongs to convention, here's how much expenses belong to convention, net those out, transfer one time over. Part of the problem you have too is we report our financials on a quarterly basis. So the transfers that I made, including the one you're speaking about, the ones that you're speaking about, I made them with dates that matched up with the data. So there are transfers, even though they didn't happen until July, they are done March 31st and June 30th to bring those quarterly reports into proper alignment. That's also why there's some other expenses and income done that way. That's why we now see accounts receivable and accounts payable on our balance sheet, because we cannot, if you go back and look at 2023, we cannot spend $5,000 in 24 on a 2023 expense and put it against the 24 budget. That is ludicrous. And that has been happening, and I'm not, for years, like multiple years. It's not happening anymore.
Here.
We have accounts payable, we have accounts receivable, we have proper accounting practices in place now. So you're going to see accounts payable and accounts receivable so that, now I don't even want to go back and run 23 because I know it's going to be off because of that if we redid it. But moving forward, that's how we have to do it.
So the $71,000 in the convention fund includes the $29,000 from 2024.
In my opinion, the 71,000 is where it should be. In other words, there should be no further expenses or income coming to that. It'll stay that way until next convention or until the 2/3 vote is select to move money out.
Okay. My last question is regarding the pre-2024 AJEs of $118,000. Can you give us some sort of analysis, as best as you can, of what was going on there?
So when you see a negative 118,000 there, that isn't just one way. When you make AJEs, that is a net. So there are some of the positive, some of the negative. That was to correct accounting errors, double entries in places where the bank account was open. There'd be an automatic QuickBooks transaction from the bank for $30,000 to open this account. There was a manual AJE for it. So from day one on this account, we showed 60,000 in the bank, we only had 30. So these were all AJEs, correcting errors going back years to achieve parity and balance in the beginning. So I took our Frost bank accounts because we have 6 bank accounts right now with Frost. They were all open at various points in 2021. I went back to the inception of those accounts and made them correct moving forward. I'll give you one example of an AG. Within QuickBooks, instead of using a brand new chart account for a bank account, an old bank account was used that had a balance still in it, even though that balance didn't exist. So an AG had to be made to bring that to a 0 balance such that that account could be seen going forward. There was a lot of AJ stuff that was done, and it, I think, would be a waste of everybody's time to get into that deeply today, but I'm happy to go through that with you privately or on the forum.
I have one more item. I moved to extend time by 15 minutes to attend to the rest of the queue.
Second.
Are we adding 15 minutes
We have
to the
4
16?
minutes left.
No, we don't. We have 16.
Oh, sorry.
That's your personal speaking time of 10 minutes. If that was
The motion was seconded.
Ms. Wilbur, do you feel intend for your motion to be processed or in light of this new information?
The motion technically belongs to the body, but we can dispense of it quickly.
All right.
The seconder can withdraw as well, and then it is.
If that's the case.
Let's just
There we go.
vote on it. Focus now.
Point of information.
Second is withdrawn,
The
so.
rule says you can't withdraw.
Okay.
Miss Bill, you said we can't withdraw the second.
If both the seconder and the maker all withdraw, then it's okay.
It's not what I read, but go ahead. I'll be
Consider-
okay with that.
Okay.
You can spend 15.
Okay, I have 3 quick questions written down here, but before I get into them, I do want to make a personal statement. Reading through that report and then kind of hearing this again, like, I can physically feel myself getting angry because this is something I care a lot about. I put in what you're describing, this long hours of work getting this fixed in the first place, and here we are again, and it is pissing me off. But all that said, I want to give you all the credit and praise for bringing it back to light and bringing things back in line. I very much appreciate it.
I could have done all this without the work.
Thank you. So that said, three questions. First of all, on the light of conventions, and I understand and appreciate what you're doing with the budgeting of the donations and where they should go and are they double entered. I understand all of that. I believe that part of the reason this is coming up is at some point in the past, SLEC shifted kind of their philosophy. And I think it was Treasury Report driven, and it was a while back, shifted our philosophy on how conventions should be looked at. And I actually believe I can pinpoint the exact convention that happened. It was 2018 in Houston, when a particular convention did really poorly. It was largely politically driven while we had the convention. And because of the political drive behind that convention, it was desired to show numbers that just were not accurate in order to show that their political drive was correct. I'm not going to go any further into that.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? To clarify my position on that, I've had people ask me, even after the treasurer's report was put out, hey, what's our financial health? And my first answer was, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because when you're putting this stuff together, it doesn't matter what the final numbers look like. The facts are the facts. This expense goes where it goes. This income goes where it goes. I didn't look at the bottom line until after I put my report out.
Agreed. Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's what it should be. So with that said, it was the case prior to 2018 that the way we looked at convention income was largely driven by ticket sales, booth sales, and things people quote unquote purchased at convention. And that determined our profit and loss. And separately, we got a large influx of donations as a separate item. At that convention, it was then shown, well, no, donations are really part of convention income. And that's kind of been the philosophy I've seen moving forward from there. And I would urge this body, as well as our treasurer, draw the line in the sand right here, and let's go back to the old philosophy, because that is not only, I believe, more correct to our organization, how we should be running it, but secondly, makes this a lot easier down the road.
Here.
So you're saying you would have recorded that 30,000 off the convention income statement, left it completely off that income statement?
Yeah.
Jocelyn and I had some debate about that, and my concern is that there are a lot of folks that get on this body, I'm sure all of you as a company included, that don't have a lot of accounting sense. And if you have a convention where ticket sales and over your dollars or whatever brings you in 30,000 of income and we spend 50,000, that convention looks like it lost 20 grand.
Agreed.
Regardless of what the gala raised or lifetime members raised. And then people say, well, we need to adjust that budget down or whatever. I felt like that gives an inaccurate representation, which is the justification of why we chose to put it on that income statement with the big asterisk that, hey, this money belongs to the party, but not for the convention. We would have raised $20,000 in lifetime memberships that weekend without the convention. Yep, I totally understand where you're coming from. I think there are arguments on both sides. I don't really care so long as every one of you that votes on the budget understands the numbers.
Yeah.
And where that money belongs.
Well, and the thing I saw previously when we had the old accounting method is that it was events and selects, and then the departments weren't as strong, so it was more committee-based. And I think there's strong arguments in that particular convention on why the staff is a better option than committees, but I'll save that for later. In that we ran, based on ticket and booth sales, we aimed to run a thin convention. We want to keep the ticket prices as thin as possible to make it right at profitable or net zero. And then on top of that, we got a bunch of donations, which gets to go into the general fund. And if we manage to have a blowout convention, then also we have extra profit on top of that. That was kind of the goal before. And I have seen, as we've shifted our accounting practices, we have shifted our mentality to let's have a losing convention and get a bunch of donations, guys. And I'm not for that personally. So that's convention.
I think to that end, when we start to judge which convention location we're going to go to, we need a significant report put out with plenty of time for us to digest that and manipulate it and have a discussion about how do we budget for this.
Point of order, are these, these questions for the treasurer's report, or are these discussions for future philosophy and plans?
These are questions about how the accounting is being done in the treasury.
It really is both. I mean, it is a little bit of a debate on how we do it in the future, but how we record these numbers and how they get presented to the body, I think his point is kind of leads into that.
Yeah. Second one is authorizations versus budget. So I'm gonna invoke the name of the great Arthur Thomas here. There's been a long tradition on this body of we adopt a budget. Arthur then says, "Wait, are we authorizing the expenditure?" We then all roll our eyes and groan, and we say, "Well, we'll do both in one motion." I have long not agreed with that philosophy, and I think we should stop that immediately. And the point I want to bring up on you is the budgeting of the store. I think it is important that we have an accurate budget on the store. We have an accurate budget, an accurate goal, an accurate path forward on how much we think we should be spending this year, and in turn, how much we think we should be making. That number should be very different from what we authorize them to spend. We shouldn't say if you go over your budget on your spending on the store, you have to stop. We should say we're budgeting that you're probably going to spend $10,000 this year. But if you start selling stuff, we're authorizing you to spend 20. Those are the dual functions of SLEC.
Sure.
To budget and authorize, and I think we should.
And I would say that even if this body authorized that department to only spend $2,500, if I'm seeing it making money, I'm not going to turn the credit card off because this body failed to authorize further. And as there are no teeth in the documents, if you guys want to stop me from doing that, you might ought to get on a motion to remove the documents. Because they're not there now, and I'm telling you that is what I will do. I will not go against the financial health of this party over details that I don't find to be proper.
I guess I would say this in the most direct way possible to respond to what you said. I don't think our bylaws have strong teeth as to that. I think financial law and what we are allowed to spend and the fact that our bylaws say we authorize the spending is what has strong teeth. And if any treasurer, for good reason or not, decided to go say, well, there's no teeth in it, I'm going to spend this on paying myself a lot of money, we sue them. I think that is the teeth.
There are one person privilege,
Whoa.
whatever it might be. We have a lot of people in queue, and I would ask that we ask questions, get answers, and move on.
So I have a minute left of my time, and I have one more question. You mentioned something about the IRS not authorizing the expenditure of the sales of things. I'm not actually aware of the TC. You mentioned the TC. I'm not actually aware of any laws per the TC that prevent us from selling anything. I am aware that if we start selling things that make more than $100 in a year, it triggers IRS reporting. Are you directly aware that there is a TEC law that prevents us from doing that?
No, I'm not directly aware of that. As I stated, I was stating the prior practice that we have been operating under.
Okay.
I have yet to tackle this issue with TEC on a personal basis. When I do, I will secure a solid answer from them and CYA documentation, and then adjust the path accordingly.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, I move that we extend 15 minutes for additional questions that exist.
Second.
We are not out of time.
Just 1 minute, right?
No, that's my time.
Oh, jeez.
Y'all are setting up time.
You have time?
There's still 5 minutes left in this, 6 minutes left in
How
this.
did you get time? I'm confused.
He was in the queue.
A speaker's allowed 10 minutes, each individual speaker.
We have Billy,
Sorry.
Renee, Jack, Ted, Trigan, Jody, and then Carol. So Billy, you're up.
Appreciate it. Thanks for all the hard work that you did. Sincerely appreciate it. I'd like to ask if individual select members like myself have questions about detail, a level of detail in your report. Is it appropriate for us to submit those to the treasurer in writing, or should we submit those to Andrew's point about making the working organization so that we're not, troubling officers, especially staff members, with every little thing that we select members think of. Is it appropriate for us to submit those to you in writing or to the chair in writing in order to ask those kind of questions? Or is this the only appropriate venue for that?
I'll let him answer that and I'll give you mine.
Yeah, my deal had to do with the general staff that I'm more generally responsible for. And in the case of financial stuff, I think it would be appropriate to just go directly to the treasurer, for these kinds of budget spending.
If you want an accurate financial answer, I would suggest approaching either Jocelyn or me. In her capacity as bookkeeper, she can set how she'd like to be approached. I would like all questions to go to treasurer at lptexas.org via email first. We can start that conversation there. And anything on what it is,
Great, it's nothing critical, it's just wanting to know a couple of numbers. And given that response, I'll yield my time to everyone else, and I'll address my questions to you later. Thanks.
Mr. Perez.
Thank you a lot for the work you've been doing, Joe. Just a real quick question, and if you don't think it's appropriate to answer it here, I'm fine with that. So regarding our burn rate, is that something that you say you feel comfortable with where we're at now?
Define burn rate.
Exactly. And if you prefer, if you prefer doing that in a more private or something more or less public.
Renee, I have no problem telling you I won't speak about it here. That's the choice.
Okay, well, because that's what a lot of this comes down to, is how we figure out our burn rate. For normal expenditures and going out, coming in versus a one-off.
You're talking about cash flow?
Yes. Yeah, oh, yes.
Okay, so you're asking me about the cash flow position we're in the future?
Yeah, based on our burn rate.
And am I comfortable with it? My comfort level, there are two things that I'm doing here. One, as a treasurer, I am reporting the facts. I am the boring accountant. Okay, and then there is my opinion on the financial, and those two things are completely distinct. I'm not comfortable with our cash flow. Again, as I stated, right now, we show a $10,000 profit in a 6-month time frame, but that includes $30,000 in income we know we will not replicate in the latter 6 months. So if we continue on that same level of expenditures, we're going to show a net loss for the year. However, I am comfortable with that net loss because we are sitting on $230,000 of assets that are doing us no good sitting there. If we are spending those assets down, I'm comfortable with that too, as long as we are doing something to achieve liberty, whatever it is our goals are for the party. I think we all, as select members, have a fiduciary responsibility to kind of determine in our own minds what we think the safety net ought to be, what we think the reserve amount of money select ought to be sitting on in case we have a bad year, in case we have a budget that we just don't get the income or we overspend, what have you. And whatever that reserve is for you, if you think that reserve should be $50,000, then you need to come up with ways to spend every other dollar that we got until we go down to that reserve. Because again, it's not doing us any good sitting in the bank.
Thank you.
And it doesn't do any good for our donors either. I'm a donor. I'd rather my money sit in my bank account. If I give it to you, I want you to use it. It's really that simple. I'm making good money as a percentage. We are not on my money. So.
And second question, unrelated, regarding the AGE. So if I understand correctly, it sounds like you're going, taking windows of time. And have you been able to go back and for whatever window of time that you've been working on to make those corrections? And would you consider those windows or your analysis closed?
Not in any way, shape, or form.
Oh.
Prior books analysis isn't even remotely close to close.
Okay.
What I did with the HAEs was shove everything 2023 back into 2023 to get it out of the way so that we could record accurate books for you guys for the year of 2024. I was only elected treasurer from April 15 forward, but I went back and then I took the Frost Bank accounts all the way back to inception in 2021. Beyond that, any accounting errors before that, I haven't gone after. I will likely one drunken night review 2023 because I want to see how much different it will be than what we were, what we saw, but it wouldn't be too awfully far off. Prior years, I can't speak to.
Motion to extend for 20 minutes.
I thought we just did the 50%.
No.
We just did it. No, we didn't pass that.
Nothing passed.
We didn't take a vote.
Today I learned the motion to extend is not doable. So we will just go to vote. The motion is to extend for 20 minutes. Did I
20
hear that
minutes.
correctly? So all in favor of extending for 20 minutes?
Nicotine.
All opposed? The motion passes, so we will continue for 20 minutes.
Next is Jack, followed by Ted.
I'd just like to say, first of all, that I appreciate all the questions that have been brought up. I thought they've been very important and valuable to me because I had last minute responsibilities on another board where I was assigned to a committee and had a whole bunch of time since we didn't have time to do due diligence on this. So pardon my stupidity regarding this. But I just want to ask, all these other questions I'm going to ask you later that I have, but are there any items that you presented to us that cause you any concern that you think you need to address us other than what you've already told us? And anything that would keep us from approving the budget and accepting the report as you have presented it?
Nothing other than what I've given you and what's in the notes.
Most excellent. Thank you.
I will be having significant input on the budget that we see through because it impacts what we do greatly.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, I'm very impressed. We have $230,000 in the bank. Unfortunately, it's just eaten away by inflation while we're waiting to spend it. We will spend it eventually, but not immediately. So I'm wondering, is there anything limiting us from some of these excellent short-term CD rates? Right now, money in this like 150,000 under like 4.75% on a 69-month CD and make $2,000 for the party that way. I know what pay taxes on it, but is there anything limiting us to otherwise do that?
I have no idea. I would have to ask TC on that. I would think that there's not because we are already making a substantial amount of interest in savings accounts. So I don't see how TC could delineate between a savings account or CD, but I can't speak to those areas. So I'm very
Mr. Burns, I can answer that question. Yeah, so, and I'm a little concerned that you're saying we're making a decent amount of money on savings account. Nothing on TC, as far as I'm aware, prevents us from making interest, making investments, making whatever. The IRS, however, considers that money made for our political purpose, which includes donations and expenditures for political purposes, and a few little weird carve-outs that I'm not going to go all into, are all tax-free. And as a political organization, we don't even have to talk to them until, in a given calendar year, we make more than $100. Once that happens, and I think the treasurer needs to consider where we want to move forward, we then file IRS reports on every single dollar that's ever come in and left, and we have to mark each one exempt or not exempt. We don't file on the interest. We file on everything. So it creates a sudden jump of a huge amount of work for a little amount of money. So
Is that net or gross, John? I thought it was net. $100 net.
I'm not sure when you mean net. I mean, I consider net expenses versus income.
Yeah.
So I guess it's gross because like it's also $100 in non-political expenditures can trigger it. It's if we spend $100 or make $100 that is not part of our thing, everything goes to the IRS at that point.
Yeah, if that's true, we're gonna have some significant reporting to do, and it's gonna go back a long way because we've been making more than $100 in interest a year for years.
Yeah, I used to, when I was treasurer, I was very careful about taking money out of the savings account to make sure we never hit that. So
I thought it was net.
We should probably
consult the tax attorney.
You can consult it, but
Yeah, this is one that we're gonna have to take offline. We're gonna have to figure it out and go from there. If we're already going to have to be reporting to the IRS anyway, why not make some money?
Right.
Well,
As we can, but we can't forget.
Right.
and the other door that, if we're filing anyway, the other door that opens up wide open for us is to directly sell merchandise, not even try and play the donation game. We're filing anyway, just sell it. You know.
All right, I have a variety of questions. Bill, another question.
Let's limit it to like one, because we do have a queue.
Yeah.
If we
I
can.
have 5 and they're really quick.
Let's get to it.
All right, full year, we do your full year, that's a straight line, right?
Full year what?
So you got, we're gonna make $10,000. That's a straight line out from year to date.
Yes, all the year, and when it says, when that budget says as of June 30th, that is
Yeah.
year to date, that's January 1st through June 30th. That corresponds directly with a year-to-date income statement provided in the report.
Okay. And did you suggest that we didn't do accruals last year to properly account for them, maybe do a bunch of journal?
I didn't just suggest it, I stated it. We did not do accrual accounting last year. We are doing accrual accounting now.
Okay. Cash flow statements, any hope by next year maybe? Because I think that'll help with Renee's question.
We can, it won't, because it would show a $30,000 cash flow drain, but it's not gonna show you what's gonna happen later on in the year. I mean,
But you're not amortizing anything, and there's nothing complex in income.
Right. If you guys want cash flow statements, I would consider putting those out.
Okay. And then, of course, I got the same question around prior year. I think you said no, not anytime yet. But it would be important to hear trending, right? You said we got $10,000 in donations. Was it last year 100,000 or was last year 2,000, right? I mean, those are gotcha questions.
I may do some financial analysis like that, but this body has access to all prior reports.
Do it yourself.
I'm not saying that, but I'm kind of saying that. I've done that type of analysis for my own personal self as a select rep.
And out of respect for Jesse, I'm going to go look at it. I second Ted's point on the.
Try to
put it.
In my opinion, that would be
How much
something.
is in savings?
Well, that's shown on the balance sheet. Right under the financial numbers. So.
But no, so the balance sheet shows funds, it doesn't show accounts.
Yes, that's right there. There are your 6. So you're sitting 71 in commission.
Okay, so out of those, how many are saving versus 0%?
The supplemental and the general fund are both checking accounts. Isn't that right? The supplemental is second checking account. The rest of them are savings accounts.
Okay.
Generating interest earned.
All right, sports fans, we got 4 in queue, and the quicker we get through this queue, the quicker we can have a bio break. Next up, Jody, I had you, but I wasn't sure if you were trying to respond to something specific.
Yeah, I was trying to respond to John Wilford's talk about the way that we were doing the accounting with the memberships and stuff. And I just wanted to echo, I guess, because I put my hand up before you responded to that, is that one of the reasons that it is important for it to be under that convention is because the same thing with the Vote With Your Dollars, we wouldn't have had that fundraiser without convention, even though it wasn't at convention. The same thing with the memberships, we wouldn't have gotten those without it being at the gala. So that those memberships wouldn't have been happening without the convention, which is why I do agree that it should be classified under there versus outside, and that was it.
Everybody's gonna have different opinions on that. To me, as an accountant, it's dealer's choice.
Yeah.
As to how the data is presented.
I know we talked about the store. Will there be a potential for the store to be self-funding? They're self-funding, which means whatever money they need will be worked out.
It already is self-funded.
But I mean,
It's profitable.
right, but that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, that, we get the money and they just make it.
That's kind of what's happening.
No, she's talking about like me physically making it instead of doing print on demand. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not so much, no, it's sort of like, we had that budget, and you said we can't budget the money because it's.
You can't budget a fixed amount to a variable cost.
Right, and that's why I was saying, well, then it should be like, should just be like 0 until.
No, during budget discussions, I would probably suggest that we budget for a profit percentage.
Okay.
What we expect the shop to achieve.
Because I was thinking it wasn't self-funding, and that's what I'm thinking, well, it should be.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but in the past, we had fixed expenses that caused that shop to lose money. We don't have those anymore.
No, we fixed it, and it's 19% profitable.
Yes, you're
right.
So, question, if our labs will
the 10-day TEC report was filed late. It was
Which
filed-
TC report?
The 10-day change of treasurer report.
Okay, if you say so.
Okay, it was filed 3 days late. He was responsible for any fines that are incurred because of that late payment.
That goes directly to the treasurer that, is there when report's filed late?
Thank you.
Just a point of clarification, our report was not filed late. The
No,
report
not-
was not filed late.
input it, that was Kate's job to submit it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I wouldn't put any late. So
Yeah, I was
just
like,
making
yeah.
sure We weren't looking at fines ourselves.
But I will say this, if they're gonna chase a treasurer down for those late fees, they're gonna chase a whole lot of them down across the state. There's a whole lot of outstanding bullshit fines that exist for that type of stuff. And getting, just to be clear, as an accountant, giving someone 10 days to file a report of that size is ridiculous.
I was working overnight to get that report done.
Yeah, that's a state authoritarian.
If they don't chase.
Who's next in the queue?
Mr. Garza, that's the last in queue.
So, we had our previous meeting, it was our first meeting that we had as a SLEC. Convention had just happened, so I want to know your thoughts, the only thoughts that I guess really matter to me, on this is, how did convention do? We had a lot about convention was horrible, or leading up to convention is gonna be horrible, not gonna fund enough, we weren't gonna make enough, we're gonna spend too much, things like that. What are your thoughts on the convention?
Financially, convention was fine. I mean, if we took out both of your dollars, we still would have had a problem. But we were wildly successful because of that one event. We could have survived without it, still made good money, and we'd have been fine. But $50,000 of the 230 we're sitting on is a direct result of that one thing. That is a linchpin event. And Becca and Tim are not here, but I'd like to thank both of them because they're the ones that started this and took the initial heat, because we thought a lot of hell about this the first year it was done. And it's because of their willingness to go to bat for that, and those of us who defended it across the country, because a lot of people bitched. This year, we made a lot more money. I think we made like 18K. Woody may remember the exact number, but I think it was around 16K back then on it. We got a lot less sale this time and made a lot more money.
That's why controls in place.
So that was a key factor for the wild success. But again, without it, it was still a financial success. And it will be as long as we do our due diligence. Again, I would caution that when it comes time to pick a convention location again, and we budget for a convention, we need to take our time and get it right. And not do it the same day a report is submitted to us. We need to have discussions about the lead up to that and get into the details.
Thank you.
And on that note, Jody's already submitting an RFP, so she's planning on her picking that presentation and moving forward.
Okay, that closes out the queue of questions that we had, so the next schedule, we mentioned it, okay. The next scheduled, event is a recess, so we will recess for 10 minutes and come back here. Y'all comfortable with that? I mean, we've got 15, but 10.
I hope so, because I'm going.
Okay.
Yes. The organizational structure that is being proposed is just that. It is the structure. It is the framework on which we'll build our staff. There are some other, I think there may be other concerns about personnel, staff, that kind of thing. Those would be properly addressed in another format, another scenario. And if that's an issue with that, just want to make sure that the only thing on the table right now, so to speak, that's a bad choice of words. The only thing I have proposed right now for your consideration is that we change the reporting structures and reformat the departments. That's the only thing that's under consideration here. So with that said, the next item on the agenda is a campaign support department report from Mr. Polsky. We have a functional mic cord now. Thank you, whoever made that run.
Thanks, Kenneth. Kenneth was amazing and went to Guitar Center for me.
All right, everyone's doing fine? All right, brand new department. Just a first warning, I've been talking in front of public for going on 3 years now, and I still hate it. I'm still really bad at it, but I'll keep doing it because that's what I'm doing right now. Doing a great job. Thank you. So brand new department, campaign support. Just gonna give an overview. That's good stuff. So right now we're just working on getting support out to our candidates. We are building websites, we are doing interviews with candidates, and we've rolled out voter gravity for all of our candidates and counties for any of those who have actually attended the training or have gone online and watched the video. I've also got an outline, a brief outline goals for next year, and then going into 2026. Some of the strategy going into this is going to be determined by what are lawsuits that are currently ongoing and what we can and can't do going forward. I know in the past we've had a lot of paper candidates. People just want to put their name on the ballot. It doesn't cost them anything to do that. If that's no longer an option, well, we're going to have to change your strategy a little bit there. So starting off here, candidate status update. We had, I think it was 49 or 50 candidates total that had filed to run in county races or statewide races or just congressional House district races in Texas. Of those, 17 have received notice from the Secretary of State that they are ineligible to be on the ballot because they did not pay a filing fee. Of the remaining 32, there are still 12 that have not paid the filing fee. They have not received notice at this time. The Secretary of State has until August 23rd to notify those candidates. If they do not notify them by that point, they can no longer remove them from the ballot for failing to pay a filing fee. With those candidates that have been removed, there are we do have one candidate who is in the process of trying to replace one of those candidates, Jeff Miller back here. He's trying to replace Bill Kelsey. And he is trying, he's making an effort to get petitions. So it's a thing about this for a congressional race, it only requires 500 signatures. Jeff and I sat together on voter gravity, and he has 900 people in his precinct alone that did not vote in the primary and are registered to vote. That's in his precinct, not his district, his precinct. Wow. So that's leveraging voter gravity there. That's a great block voting tool. And I know he's working with other counties right now to get more people on the ground just to go and walk in their precincts. That's something that, depending on how these lawsuits work in the future, great tool to go and get our signatures if we want to go petition routes. Also, because apparently in Texas, you cannot get petitions to get on the ballot as libertarian until after the primaries. So that gives us a very small window. And you have to pay a filing fee when you go and submit your application in December or have the petitions, which you can't do petitions until then. So yeah, it's going to be a little interesting scenario there. There is another candidate that we are currently working with as well. that do not pay a filing fee, that if they do receive notice, then they've already got a strategy in place on getting a replacement in there, who is willing to pay the filing fee to get on the ballot in their place. So that'll be a good one. The catch is the Secretary of State said has until August 23rd to notify all candidates that they will be removed. August 26th is the date that we have to have all of our replacements in. That gives us a 3-day window if the Secretary of State waits until the last day to find replacement candidates. Please. The way that we do our replacements, and I spoke with John on this, thank you for helping with that, is everybody who did a district convention earlier this year and nominated candidates, those are at your district executive committee. So if you are replacing a congressional candidate, if you're replacing a House district candidate, and they were nominated at a district convention, you have a district chair and a district secretary. You may also have additional personnel if you elected them at your district convention. That is your body to get together in a 3-day window to make a motion to nominate somebody as a replacement. I've already reached out to the chairs, the district chairs for Bill's race that Jeff is running in, so they are aware. Was that you? No, somebody else. And then I've reached out to the chair of the other race that they are looking to replace if something happens. So they already know that they may have to make a phone call, go get some coffee together and have a quick little meeting. A 2-3 day window there. In addition to that, we did Brazos County. We just got an email just the other day that the Brazos County Elections Committee, I think it was, the elections administrator sent an email to the Secretary of State asking the Secretary of State to remove the candidates that were running in Brazos County that did not pay a filing fee. That is not a notice that those candidates are ineligible. That is just a notice from the county to the Secretary of State to asking them to remove those candidates. Again, that Secretary of State can wait until August 23rd, we won't know. And if we go knocking on doors, that may trigger things early, which may benefit us if we want to replace people, but we would like to not replace people and just keep them on the ballot and shut up and don't say anything, right? So that's where we're currently at on the candidate status update. Like I said, going forward, we're going to have to really kind of come together as a party and figure out what type of candidates do we want to run. If there is no way to get rid of a filing fee, we're going to have people that are either able to fundraise before they get on the ballot, have money to put on the ballot, but then depending on what comes out with the lawsuits, we'll see what we can do with that money if it comes back to us. Again, future strategy discussion, all hinges on the current lawsuits. So moving on to the voter gravity rollout. So for everybody who doesn't know, voter gravity is currently free to the state of to the LP Texas party via the LNC. So they have provided voter gravity to all the states. As long as we have a candidate or a county that is currently paying for it to use the full extent of voter gravity, and the state party gets access to it for free. And with that, we can then leverage that to help out our candidates or help out our counties. Billy looks confused.
As long as we have at least one candidate that's paying for it?
Yes.
Okay, and we have a candidate paying?
Yes.
Cool, thanks.
There is a tier cost structure for voter gravity. So after campaign season, I think we can get down to it's like $50 a month if we can find a county that has a small population that gets us into that lowest tier structure that we can find a way to get them to pay for it, and then the whole party gets access to it.
What's the big deal?
Yeah,
Question, right?
Look at this. So first voter gravity meeting training we did was on June 23rd. We had about 15 individuals that had attended. Those were county chairs, those were candidates as well. Everybody who attended us in the survey to basically ask them, did you understand the training? There was one who said no. We've had a second meeting later and now they understand it. At least I hope so. And anyway, so anybody who is, anybody who did fill the survey, you now have access to voter gravity. I've gone in there, I've seen that. Some people are making lists, some people are using the tool. Hopefully this is something that we can keep pushing out throughout the next year, next couple of years, election cycle. And just as a tool for counties and for precinct chairs, a precinct lowest level down there, to go out and meet people in your precinct that are registered to vote that may be libertarian. It has the great, it has a built-in walk list, so you don't have to go and download the data and go pay for another app somewhere to use it, just all built into it. We did a second training on July 27th. We had 2 people show up. So we have somebody else now has access to voter gravity. There's still quite a few people and quite a few counties and candidates that have not attended and don't have access yet. So I encourage everybody. There is a link. I think I've sent out an email. I know with a link to go and look at the training that was initially done. It was recorded. It's about an hour long. Please, if you want, you should have access as a county. Please go out there, watch the video, fill the survey afterwards. We'll get you hooked up. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. We'll probably do another training session or just a Q&A session later this year, and probably do it maybe every quarter, maybe twice a year, just to make sure that everybody's up to date on it. As chairs and candidates come and go, it's good to have a refresher and answer questions. So let's see. That's it for the voter gravity. Again, any questions over that, we'll do that in a bit. Website builds. So one of the things that we started rolling out this year, and I'm also giving the IT report later, so I'll talk a little bit more about this, is LP Texas now has infrastructure in place to where we can roll out candidate websites. It takes a couple hours. Once we have the information from a candidate, pictures, your about me, maybe some small platform, we have a template that we purchased from the LNC that they put out that's available for candidates. They said we can do whatever we want with it because we now own it. So we're using that template to deploy websites for candidates. Like I said, in a couple hours notice. If a candidate has their own domain URL that they would like to continue using, then we can just ask them to forward that information to the LP Texas servers, and then we'll post that domain name with the template that we have. If they don't, one of the things that we're doing is working on making subdomains. So for me, if I was running, it would be polsky.lptexas.org. It doesn't cost the candidate anything. It's something that we can tear down after the election season and get those resources back, the virtual resources back, so we can then use for candidate websites and other things the following year, the following election cycle. Again, there's no cost to candidates. So I know in the past, the recommendation is June have been go find something that's for you, Pam. Or doing yourself if you know what you're doing, if you have the time for it. This is something that I personally been trying to push for a while now, and now that we have resources, it's something that we're doing. We have, I want to say we have 9 candidate websites today. We're currently working on another one, and I spoke with someone else earlier who was interested in the next one as well. So that puts up to 10 or 11 candidate websites. Depending on what happens with the rest of the candidates after this August 23rd date, we may reach out to candidates and say, hey, can we take your site down because you're not on the ballot anymore? And we would like to recoup some of those resources so that we can use for other candidates, and so we increase the resources on that server later on. Some of the strategy for that was I worked with Michael Winters, so a shout out to him for being a huge help with
Yes.
this.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. Yeah. So we compiled a list. He and I compiled a list of all of our candidates that were elected or nominated at conventions. We then looked for and found the candidate websites for anybody who had one. And then we reached out to everybody else. Say, hey, you don't have a candidate website, would you like one? Of the 20-something, we got 9 people back. So again, I don't know, my analysis of that is it depended on the type of race they were running. Were they playing a paper candidate, or were they actually in it to win it, or at least to do something? So we had a couple of what we would refer to as paper candidates that did come back and say, hey, can you please make me a website? But most of the ones that have not responded back were either A, people who didn't pay a filing fee, or B, people who were probably running more of a paper candidate campaign anyway, so they didn't really want one. Going forward, I'm going to heavily suggest that every candidate has a website, whether you plan on using it or not. Whether or not you want to receive donations, by default, our template points all the donations to LP Texas. If you want to have set up your own bank account and receive donations, then we can work with the candidates on that to set that up. Otherwise, candidates can encourage their voters to donate to LP Texas through their candidate website. So hopefully we get some more donations that way.
Just to make a clarification, what happens to donation to a candidate that runs through?
Moving. We got to keep rolling.
We'll come back to that later.
Sorry.
I got you though.
So that's where we're at, the websites right now. Part of, and again, although it's a little more with the IT stuff later, some of the infrastructure change that the IT department went through, when we spun up, seven websites at the time. We quickly realized that our infrastructure could not handle 7 websites at the time. So they made the call to increase the resources on the server to allow us to spin up more websites with the necessary resources. And there's some other stuff going on that we'll actually get on later. Candidate interviews. Amanda Collins and I have been doing candidate interviews again. Reached out to every candidate. Not all of them have responded. Just let them know, hey, we're doing candidate interviews. This is to get to know you. This is for you to be able to promote yourself, your campaign, and we post those on the LP Texas YouTube channel or YouTube page, whatever you want to call it, and give those links to the candidates to say, hey, go promote. Here you go. Go share this on social media, and I think Kenneth, you also sent a list of all the candidates' interviews to some local media, and some of those are like, what was the one websites?
It's actually a 501c3 for kind of like to get out to the activity. So I'm still trying to get them to actually respond somewhere. So
good luck.
We may have to do one.
All right. So again, we've encouraging candidates. If you have not done a candidate interview, if you are still going to be on the ballot, even if you're not going to be on the ballot, we don't mind taking an hour of time and let you give your message. But definitely get those so that we can put them on your candidate website as well. So the template allows us to put a video on there, and so someone click on and go to the website, you can see your candidate interview right there. So good thing there. Again, same challenges that we potentially have with the websites. It's just depending on the type of campaign somebody's running, just determines how much they want to respond. Quickly going over the goals. So for 2025, and this will come up later in one of the motions, is I've been reached out to several different organizations that do candidate training, they do campaign manager training, they do different types of training courses, in person, online, and I've gotten a couple of quotes back already, where we as LP Texas can host a training event in person. I would like to do it around the state where we can actually get people who are interested in running campaigns, who are interested in actually being campaign managers and helping out candidates out there at no cost to the candidate or the campaign individual, and get them the training that they need. So that's one of the big goals I want to do. I'm aiming for 2 to 3 next year to get the training done. And then going forward from there, treasurer training for if you're going to be a treasurer for a campaign and just that kind of stuff. But primarily focus on candidate training and campaign manager training because that's the biggest impact there. Support tools, just as the department grows, as the next cycle comes around, we're going to see what other types of tools we can utilize, we can pick up. We have $230,000 in the budget or in the bank right now, so that can give us a lot of tools if we need to, depending on what it's going to cost. And then strategy for 26. So again, that goes back to it really depends on what these lawsuits turn into. If our favorite candidate option goes away, then we really need to figure out what type of candidates we want to run. We definitely need people to run at statewide for statewide races to maintain that ballot access. But congressional, as an example, congressional races are really expensive to just put your name on the ballot. House races, third of the cost, even less than a third of the cost. That may be more beneficial. Countywide races, also more beneficial. It gets libertarians on the ballot still. It's less upfront cost for candidates, especially if we're going to go with the petition route. If we can get online petitions, maybe we have people want to run for Congress do online petitions if we get that route. We'll see. But we're definitely have to revisit what the strategy is for getting people on the ballot going forward. So I've got my conclusion there, and so now we'll open the Q&A.
Mr. Ramos?
There's a
Then
minute.
we've got Billy, Coogan, Carol, and then I see Mr. Roberts, I see Mr. Constant.
Joe raised his hand too. Oh, okay.
You can take it
Sorry,
off.
I'm not used to
Mr.
hearing.
Chair, I think you recognized for a question of privilege.
Yeah, what is your question?
Given some of the content of the report, I actually was going to do this earlier, but we moved on. I would like to move into executive session
Second.
for political strategy as per the bylaws.
Second.
And legal
We have a
strategy.
motion to move into executive session for political strategy, and it's been seconded. Is there any objection? Motion passes, so we're now in.
Hold on,
executive.
just, yes, we are there, but like, give me a second to make sure technically. Okay, I think we're good now.
You good?
Let me check the news. I'm back.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recess for lunch. Second.
Oh, wait, we need to motion to come back to lunch later since lunch was actually at 11:45 on the agenda.
Times are estimates that it goes by the order on the agenda, and those have stated times. So the next order of business would be Mr. Bradley's report, unless somebody wants to move to suspend, or what's the?
So what I heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair, since you are the ultimate ears in the room, is he just moved to recess for 90 minutes.
I'll second this.
We have a move to recess.
Recess is debatable.
Is there any objection to recessing for 90 minutes?
I think everybody's doing it.
Okay, that carries. We are at recess.
Anybody want to take 10 round signs now? Let me know.